It is 6:01, and I'd like to call the Cortez City Council work session to order. It is Tuesday, May 26th. And item number A on our agenda is a comprehensive economic development strategy presented by Laura Lewis Marchino, Executive Director of Region 9. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. Can you all hear me? Great. I'm going to put up my screen. Before I get started, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you all. I know many of you are new, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do in serving the city of Cortez in particular, and then talk about our economic development strategy. You have several items in your packet, and the first one that I'm going to talk about is the County Performance Report, and that's for the 2025 fiscal year. And before I do that, I do have our Deputy Director also on Zoom, so I wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself because he'll be talking about one of the pieces as well.
Thank you, Laura, and good evening, Mayor and council members. Happy to be with you this evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear remotely.
Thank you so much. And you said my name perfectly, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that.
I was worried about it. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know what Region 9 Economic Development District is, we are one of 14 planning and management regions in Colorado. So Colorado is divided into 14 regions, and you may or may not know that the 5 counties of Southwest Colorado kind of get lumped together and they're Region 9. And so the workforce region is the same, the CDOT planning region is the same, the Area Agency on Aging region is the same. So that's really where the state basically divides the counties to do regional work. And we are quasi-governmental. We're a council of governments and an economic development district. And you may have heard of Region 10, which is just to the north of us. We weren't very creative with our names. And then the San Luis Valley is Region 8, just for some context. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is just what we have done that specifically impacts Cortez over the past year. And I'm going to walk through this performance report very briefly, but what you can see on the screen is a list of the representatives from Montezuma that serve on our board of directors and committees. We are required to have a representative from all 17 municipalities in the 5 counties, as well as members of the private sector. So we do have a loan committee, and then we have a representative and an alternate from each of the municipalities, Cortez, Mancos, Dolores, so you'll see those. And then I wanted to just kind of scroll without making you sick to the bottom of the second page. And basically, this is a list of all of the inquiries that come into our office in 2025. And so basically, the city of Cortez specifically, if somebody identified themselves to be with the city, and that would be your constituents, we had 91 calls to our office just from Cortez. And those include data inquiries, because we do a lot of data. We have a business loan fund. We also run the Enterprise Zone Tax Credit Program. We have a grant navigator, so we get grant calls, and then just general inquiries. So I just wanted to show you that, and you can see what the inquiries were for Montezuma Unincorporated, as well as the town of Mancos and the town of Dolores. And then I'm going to scroll a little more. I feel bad, sorry. The Business Loan Fund is our largest program, and we basically do gap financing for businesses that are startups and not yet bankable. And so what you'll see on the screen is our 2025 activity. So we distributed $320,000 in loans to Cortez businesses specifically, and Montezuma businesses. And those businesses said that they either created or retained 85 jobs. We do very small loans, so we start from like $5,000. And if you look a little lower on this list, you'll see a list of all the businesses that are current loan clients of Region 9, and that goes on to the next page. Because we are a government, we have to disclose who we make loans to and the amount that we provide, but we do not have to disclose whether they're paying or, you know, how that business is actually doing. And you can tell by some of these, they're small businesses, 1 or 2 employees, and they're also primarily startup businesses. The Enterprise Zone, a tax credit program we actually run for the state, and all of Montezuma County is in an Enterprise Zone area, which is considered a distressed area. And so the tax credit program is any business that is within Montezuma is actually eligible for these tax credits. And I want to call out Cortez staff, Helen West, who has been phenomenal in letting businesses know about this program. And as you can see, if you can read the chart, we had 127 businesses in Montezuma that claimed tax credits in 2025 and what those amounts are. It's slightly off in the fact that you'll see only 21 for La Plata, but very few areas in La Plata are considered distressed. So, you know, it's just businesses that are actually in that specific area. But phenomenal work. I mean, it is always nice if we can help a business have their money go further. And then I'm going to keep scrolling down. You'll see contribution projects. Enterprise Zone also allows nonprofit or community organizations that have a project that will improve economic conditions be approved, and they can give tax credits to their donors. So these are the current projects in Montezuma that actually are able to do that at this time, and that was through 2025. And then we have a grant writing support program. We have a grant navigator. We work closely with Cortez grant writer, but we can also edit, do research, and we primarily work in communities that don't have the staff capacity to do their own grants. And that's something that we've been doing since 2022, and it's been phenomenal. And as you read through this, and I won't read it to you, you can see some of the organizations that we provided grant support for. And then also on this list is the Southwest Opioid Response District, or SORD, and that is our regional council. So we also, since we do programs that cross county lines, we are asked to do programs as they come up sometimes that are regional in scope, and SORD is one of them. And of course, your new councilwoman, Claire West, was our coordinator for this program last year, and so it helps disperse the opioid dollars throughout our region. And we're very grateful to her, and we will miss her. Sorry, I'm having trouble scrolling. And then I would like to just give Shaq an opportunity if he wanted to say anything about broadband, housing, and transportation, because those are the areas in which he works. And as you can see, they cross county lines. The city of Cortez maybe have broadband, but they have to connect outside the region in order to be impactful. And the same thing with housing as well as with transportation.
Thank you, Laura. And again, thank you, Council, for allowing me to present remotely this evening. Relating to broadband, I did want to say that we were successful as a region in bringing home much of the broadband equity access and deployment and capital project funding. Both of those, the BEAD and the CPF, were passed through from the NTIA through the state. With the CPF dollars, we were, as a region, able to bring home approximately a third of all of the dollars in the state, even though by population we're only less than 2% of the state. And likewise with the BEAD, we were able to bring home a quarter of the dollars that were allowed for the state. And so in Montezuma County, what that looks like is that we were able to support applications that were connecting Highway 160 from Cortez to Mancos, and then projects that were connecting 184 from Mancos to Dolores. And then with the capital projects funding, we're also able to provide a secondary route into Rico that will connect Rico back into the town of Dolores, and then bring the Emory Telecom from Dove Creek into Cortez. When all these are completed, we'll have a redundant ring around the county that will connect Cortez to Mancos to Dolores, back to Lewis, and then back to Cortez again. Furthermore, interregionally, we're working to make a super ring that will connect Denver to Grand Junction to Cortez to Walsenburg and back to Denver. The point of having rings is that with routing technology, we can send packets of information up and down the path continuously. And if there's, say, a mudslide in Glenwood Canyon or a fire in the southwest, or if there's a project locally that cuts a line, we're able to route that information and send it the other direction to the tier 1 internet service providers in Denver. And keep in mind that light travels through glass at a speed of 200,000 miles per second. So whether it gets routed through Grand Junction or Walsenburg, the end user shouldn't notice a difference in speed. And so the Montezuma part of that will connect Cortez to Mancos. That's being done right now. If you drive on Highway 160, you see them attaching to the poles out there. And we've ordered the optical and routing equipment that should go in Q3 to begin connecting those. And so that's your broadband update. For housing, we have been able to work with a consultant, Western Spaces, to work on automating our housing needs assessments. And the new council may not know this. Some of the old council members certainly will. But in 2024, the state legislature gave us a master piece of legislation in order to address the affordable housing need crisis. They decided that the best way to do it would be to require all jurisdictions with a population of more than 1,000 to conduct redundant studies every 6 years in perpetuity. And so we thought that there would be a way, since all of the sources were required and the outputs were required in a specific form, to automate that. And I am pleased to say that we have been able to automate that. And in fact, your staff is some of our pilot partners going through trying to break the tool, but I'm happy to say that we will be going public with the tool very soon, and so that will help all of our jurisdictions across the region to be in compliance with SB 24174, at least for the housing needs assessment component of that. And of course, with transportation, we continue to coordinate the Regional Transit Coordinating Council, as well as the Southwest Transportation Planning Region. The 10-year plan was just approved, and so we look forward to working together on some of those projects. And I see that the PowerPoint presentation for the return on investment is up on display. Laura, did you want me to go into that, or did you want to go back to your county performance report?
We can move on to the return on investment. The last thing I will say on the county performance report is we also serve as a fiscal agent for the emergency management all hazards. So again, that's regional, and that is based, the coordinator's based in Montezuma County. She's the PIO officer for Montezuma County. But we also provide that service across the region. And now you want to know where your dollars go, so I'm going to turn it back over to Shaq to talk about the funds that you provide to Region 9 and how we have leveraged that money.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Laura. And so this is a presentation really for the whole county, but you will see in the bottom square on the right that Cortez has a 10x return on their investment, and the 0x next to that, unfortunately, is the town of Mancos, who historically has done very well. However, I do want to caveat and say we do receive annual dues, and not every jurisdiction receives a return in every single year. Next slide, please. And so the important information for this, you're in the top right box there, Cortez, is membership dues of $14,131.98. In 2025, you received $140,750 back on that. I do want to clarify that's not money that goes into the general fund at the county. That is a return that is indirect to the city, and it goes to the residents of the city. So inside that number, there's $105,000 in business loans provided by Region 9 Economic Development District, and then $35,750 in a sword grant that went to an organization in the city of Cortez. So that's where that number comes from. And if you'll go to the next slide, again, this is a continuation of a county presentation. For the county, it should be noted that they didn't get a number that's as huge as the one on the top. That is because we had abnormally large broadband awards that don't occur every year. I think we can all agree that BEAD and CPF were once in a lifetime. But I do want to, on the bar graph, back one slide, please. On the bar graph, I want to call your attention to the third bar, and that is showing that there were $743,397 in enterprise zone tax credits. Laura alluded to this earlier, but your staff member Helen West does a great job of promoting that program. And even though we do track enterprise zone at a county level, I assure you a lot of those businesses are in the city of Cortez, and that's a direct reflection on the work that Helen has done. So credit where credit is due on that. And the rest of these slides, you can go through them, but they do pertain to the county and then to the municipalities. So there's the city of Cortez, as we just talked about, business loans and the sword grant. And then I believe the next one would be the town of Dolores, if you're interested, the town of Mancos, and then there's a peak of the return on investment for the county from 2022 to 2024. And though all I can see is the display, Laura can catch me up later if I ask those of you that are on the council to put a hand up if your financial advisor is delivering this kind of return for you.
Thank you, Shaq. And also in your county performance report, it has numbers from, it breaks it down where you can see Cortez's numbers for 2022 and through 2024. That was on page 2. I didn't go over that because I didn't want to conflict with any of Shaq's slides. So the last thing we have for you, and I will try to show this on the screen. As an economic development district, we are required to do a 5-year update for a community economic development strategy. So basically, we have to do an economic plan for the region every 5 years, and we are updating that right now. What we do is we ask each of the communities, we have public input processes, we're kind of in flux, in doing that. But we want to know what your economic priorities are. Just to give you an example, housing was number 1 on the list 5 years ago. I'd say it's still on the list. It might be a little, we're seeing a lot of activity around housing. We're seeing that 5 years ago, one reason we started working with SWORD was because substance use disorder and trying to get folks back into the workforce when we're very limited with our workers was a priority as well across the region. Broadband was a high priority. What we're seeing now is childcare is kind of growing as a priority across the region because of its very direct impacts and who can be in the workforce. So those are things you don't necessarily have to come up with ideas today, but we will want to get that input as you become more veteran in your positions and kind of see what priorities the city has and what you're working on for projects. Another piece of this strategy is this, and I apologize, it's very hard to read, but I believe you have a copy in front of you. We update our list of priority projects every 2 years. And basically, as you get involved in the grant writing arena or project funding, one of the requirements is usually that the project has to be in an approved community plan. And so Region 9 started being the approved community plan years and years ago. A lot of communities do their own plans and have their own priorities in addition, because we hit this at a kind of high level. But for towns like Rico, they're not going to do a community plan. And so this SEDS, as we call it, and this project list becomes how they can seek funding for a lot of state and federal dollars. If you look through it, there are very few Cortez projects on this plan because we update it every 2 years. And as you know, Cortez is coming out of where they can actually apply for a lot of grant funding because of the audit situation. And so this list, and you have a fact sheet in your packet that kind of talks about more about what it is. It's supposed to be projects that are started or completed within 2 years. So we're not looking at that high level strategy, 20-year projects. We're looking at what can we work on in the next few years, what needs to be funded, how do we match those funding dollars, and that's what you do as city councilors, with the budget. It's like, what are the priorities that we're funding in these next years, not 10 years down the road, even though you have that big picture as well. So the one that is yellow across is the Cortez Land Use Code. 2 years ago, that was a goal that Cortez wanted to do, and that one we will be taking off because it's completed. So basically, this is just a quick way to show you some of the projects. There's obviously not a lot of information on them, but these lists are approved by each county. So what we've always said with the county is we want each community, we want the Forest Service, we want whoever is doing some of these projects that need to be funded and on this list to be added. And then the ranking that you see, the county does, because the county has to approve the plan. And so, they may think that a Cortez project is a medium priority. You may think it's high for Cortez, but because the county has to approve it, they actually get to do the rankings. And the way we've kind of negotiated this with counties is don't take anything off. These need to be on here. But if you think it's a low priority, fine. Put it as low, because we all know when there's funding that's available, a low priority can get funded, quicker than maybe a high priority. And sometimes the high priorities are a lot more complex and require a lot more capital stacking of dollars and take longer amounts of time. So you'll see there's red in here. We have started those updates. We've been talking with city staff. And so this is just to give you an idea of what we're working on, because again, if there is a project that the city of Cortez has that they feel needs to be on this, we would like to know. Broadband you see is the first one. That, if you go kind of to the end where we have notes and status, we know that's going to stay on. We're just going to update it to be more relevant for the next 2 years. And then as we go through, we're starting to add projects at the bottom of the list that you see in red. And I can't even read that without my glasses. But basically, we are looking at, these are some that came from the town of Mancos. So we'll figure out where they fit in. So we have met with the town. We've kind of given a heads up to the county that we will be coming back when this is final. And this is our opportunity to have you see this and ask questions. And then what you'll also notice, and I apologize for jumping around, there's a statewide SEDS alignment column. The state also does a SEDS, and theirs, they just completed in 2024. So those are their pillars that you'll see, kind of community infrastructure and resources are one of their priorities. They have quality of life and tourism. And so we're trying to show the state that we are aligning our projects, not just with what we want locally, but what the state wants to see, so that it's kind of a bottom-up information that we're providing. Any questions?
How long have they been working on the broadband, getting it here? I know back in 2012, we were talking about this.
Yes. Gosh, and this is a little out of my expertise, but the previous director, before I was director, was Ed Moreland, and he helped bring sort of the major fiber connection between Albuquerque and Grand Junction. And then, since then, we've had Lumen and other big providers providing services, Tri-State. So what we started doing, I know in, 2012, and Shaq, you might need to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So we've been working on this for a long time, to be quite frank, Mayor, and we've got a little ways yet to go. I don't know, sometimes when government does things, they do it well, and sometimes when they do things, they do it poorly. One of the things government can sometimes get right is infrastructure. But unfortunately, the way several of these programs have been designed is that they had a last mile first component. Mm-hmm. What we're really working on at this point is building out the middle mile component. When there's a last mile first component, which was drafted in recent legislation, as well as most of what we've seen in the past, and the reason that happened is because large internet service providers often get to help draft the language that goes into those bills. But what happens when you draft it with the last mile first is that the internet service providers go where they are incentivized to go. When you deploy broadband assets to a community such as Cortez, there's a good return on investment. We call that a take rate. However, the sections between don't get built out because there's not as much return on investment there. And those are the parts that are really in need of the subsidies, right? When we think about building out 160, the piece that still needs to be built is between Mancos and Hesperus. Well, the return on investment or the capture rate for the internet service provider is low because there's just not many homes out there, and so they don't make their return back. So we've tried to support and structure our support for applications that really address that middle mile component, so that the state doesn't end up awarding to things like we've seen in the past, like EagleNet, where they just say, trust us, we'll take care of it. And then they do a really great job building out the Front Range where there's lots of return on investment, and leave the rest of the state high and dry. And so, yes, we have been working on this for decades, and we're hoping in the next decade that everybody has high-speed internet, at least within our region and the regions that we are working with. But in the past, the way it's been done with the last mile first approach would be, imagine like the Florida Keys, if you had roads and road departments building roads all over the islands, but then you failed to build bridges in between. That's where we're at. And I hope that answers your question, since I can't currently see you.
Did that answer your question?
I have a question. I have a couple of questions, actually. I appreciate the monies that are tracked back into Cortez, but I have questions. I'm not quite sure that I understand it fully. So I understand the SWORD grant being aligned to Silver Lining Recovery Home. I get that. I don't know about the $25,000 to Due West Wines or the Wilkerson Sawmill Company. Can you share with us what their involvement in the city is and what they do here? They would be
considered city businesses, and we go by zip code, so we also know that, you know, if it says Dolores, it's not always within the town of Dolores, but it's really the best we can do in terms of when we're trying to get you know, data. Those are 2 loans that we approved this year, so those are just businesses in the community that we funded.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I had a question about your grant writing assistance. Mm-hmm. Have you participated with the city grant writer on how many occasions? I mean, what does that look like?
So because you have a full-time staff grant writer, we don't usually write grants for the city, but I know that we connect and basically do grant research, and we will do that for your grant writer if needed. You know, if there's a project, transportation's a good example. You know, as things come up, I don't know if you get the emails where there's different funding sources that kind of come in, those newsletters. So we have a monthly grant digest where we try to list everything that's coming down from all these different agencies, and we send that out to an email list. So we provide that, but we also work with nonprofits and community organizations to do grant research, grant editing if they write a grant. So we will edit grants for Scott. Luckily, he's very competent, so we don't need to do a lot with him. But we have that service because Cortez is unique and a lot of communities do not have a grant writer.
Thank you.
All right. I have a question in regards to job development. I see it's listed on the sheet several places, and Mancus has that new addition there. What does Region do in regards to job creation? Is there any talk about developing a business incubator to assist businesses other than helping out with obtained business loans, that, developing business plans, marketing strategies, those kinds of things? Can you fill me in on what Region 9 does?
So for being regional, we try to work with other organizations that are more boots on the ground. So for example, there is the Small Business Development Center that does provide free technical assistance and advising and workshops, and they will help with business plans. So we do a lot of referrals to that organization, which also covers the 5 counties. But we have about meetings quarterly with all our economic developers across the region, and we all work together to make sure that we're not duplicating services and help with whatever's happening locally. So for example, Enterprise Zone being state, we sort of run that, but the local communities are promoting it. And if the local community wants, a good example would be Pagosa Springs. They are actually building a workforce technical facility called Build Pagosa, where they're going to have a lot of the certification programs to augment their high school, things like that. Their economic development organization is leading that because workforce is their priority. So we try to help with maybe grants. So we really look at how we kind of stack services. And then, of course, in Cortez, you have an economic development staff, but the county does not, and the other 2 communities do not. So we do a lot more work sometimes in the communities that need more assistance. It just really varies. But duplication is a bad word. We refuse to duplicate. Resources are too scarce.
Can you tell us a little bit about SCAPE? I was reading on page 7 of the 2025 performance report.
Sure, and that would be another piece of the ecosystem. The Southwest Colorado Accelerator Program for Entrepreneurs is a regional accelerator program, and what they do, and they are based out of Durango, and they're actually under our umbrella, and they work with businesses that have a unique product or service that they could leverage that basically could bring money into the region. So Osprey Packs is kind of an example. Nobody else does an Osprey Packs. So they're helping them get equity investment, they're helping them get customers, so they do that higher level of mentoring, and they will find them mentors, but they also do equity investments in their company, and then when that company grows, they can pay them back and that money gets redistributed in the communities. If you're familiar with like a Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory back in the day would be a skate company, when they were kind of getting in that gazelle period where they're really launching. So that program looks for businesses that have that unique product or service that would be attractive outside of the region. So a restaurant, for example, is not going to be leveraging, nationwide. So that's kind of the difference, or even statewide.
From your professional experience, how might we, I noticed that you've had more than 60 companies go through SCAPE. Is that 2 out of the 60 have come from Montezuma County? And how might we, as a city council, support and encourage more involvement with an entrepreneur accelerator program?
That's a great question. And I know when you said incubator, an incubator is more helping a business launch by providing space and technical assistance. SCAPE is a little bit more internet-based. You know, it's more about bringing in mentors to work with the business rather than providing them physical space. But when you mentioned leveraging that, we're always looking through our economic development partners for those unique businesses that are starting. We just approved a business as a rural jumpstart, which is a state program that is based in La Plata County, and they do mushrooms, which, as you know, and again, we just found out about it, so we're meeting with them next week, but they do it for fire prevention because fungi has a lot of moisture content, you know, and it's under trees, and they're actually looking at trying to develop that as a way to keep moisture in the ground and reduce the risk of wildfire. Go figure. So that's one that SCAPE's looking at because they're like, never heard of this. You know, does this have potential and capacity? So that's an example. We get a lot that sometimes the business doesn't want to grow. You know, they're happy just doing what they're doing, and SCAPE really is looking for ones that want to launch. I'm trying to think of a couple other examples. MuniRevs was from the town of Dolores, and actually Cortez may have actually used their software. She developed a software that basically helps tax verbos and vacation rentals so that towns and counties can make sure that they get the appropriate sales tax owed to them. So it was a database, and they actually have contracts with the state of Florida and the state of Texas. So they're doing it for all their governments. So there's a lot of just fun things. So go on their website if you want to know more about some of these unique businesses. Alpaca Rafts in Mancos would be another example.
And if I could jump in there, I don't have the graphic ready to display, but when we think of the economic development pyramid, business recruiting and things like that go in the very top tier of the pyramid. However, at the bottom of the pyramid is things like placemaking, and that includes things like having sound infrastructure. And so the city of Cortez obviously can't handle all of that alone, but having your water and sewer up to date, having good roads goes into placemaking. A lot of the activities that you're going to launch over the summer for the kids, playground days and stuff like that goes into
Hey, Shaq, we're showing the
youth
pyramid.
engagement. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura. And then, of course, leadership development. One thing other city councils have done, and I don't know whether Cortez City Council currently does it, is work with the local middle school and high school to put together a youth engagement team and to have them present with and at city council. And what you can do is create the environment, so working the soil in which businesses grow, and all of that leads to the second level, which is a business expansion, entrepreneurship, and then of course at the top we have business recruitment. So really anything on the base of the pyramid is where local governments can work, the county, the city, the school boards, those types of things. And it's also very helpful for businesses and entrepreneurs when the governments are in communication and they are functioning well together. And we do try to facilitate some of that. And I believe that your city manager, Drew Sanders, has a good working relationship with the county administrator and so on and so forth. So really making sure that the governments are working together well, making sure that that infrastructure is there, and anything that you can do as far as leadership development will really help create the soil in which those businesses and entrepreneurs can thrive.
Thank you for bringing that up, Shaq. The only thing I want to mention on this, because I think it's a great tool to show economic development, and in rural areas, we tend to focus more on the foundation because we don't have the housing, we don't have the water sewer, we don't have, the broadband. And so a lot of time is spent on infrastructure. And this is also where we try not to not to duplicate by picking who's doing what. What is, Mesa Verde Country doing versus the chamber versus your downtown enhancement. Making sure that we're all working together, but also not just duplicating. And the leadership development piece, one thing that makes it so critical is not just how you direct, your city services, but an unstable city council or one that, they can't get along does impact businesses, because businesses want a stable environment. They want to know what their taxes are going to be. They want to know what the regulations are going to be. So that's kind of why it's there as well. And then the youth engagement. For rural areas, we want that backward migration. We want our youth to come back. And having some of these foundational things allows for job creation and jobs to occur. So thanks for that. That was your Economic Development 101. So, any other questions?
I think it's pretty obvious. We could go on and on and on and on and on and on, but unfortunately,
That is okay.
we're limited on time.
So we'll come back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was very interesting. Appreciate it. Thank you, Shaq.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number B on our agenda. That's interview for applicants for city boards and committees. Do we have anybody in the audience that's applying? And you're applying for? Stay here. And you're applying for?
Parks and Recreation.
Could we have, well, you're the only one, so we're gonna let you stay here. Yeah, but I think, yes, we need you to go in there with them, but you're first on the list, aren't you? Why don't you go join them and we'll call you in a minute. That way you can't cheat and say what he said or she said. Okay, if we could have Linda. Yes. Could we have you go in the other room for a bit and we'll call you in?
I created your organization.
We need Linda to stay here. In fact, we need Linda to come up to the mic. Okay, we'd like to invite Linda Towle up to the the mic, and we've got some questions for you. We're going to
Okay.
go right down the line. I think you've been through this before. And we're going to go down the line and ask you some questions. So if we
Okay.
could get Miss West to start.
Welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
Do you have any personal experience with historic preservation projects? And if yes, can you please describe?
Well, if you saw my application form, I've been working in historic preservation essentially since 1980, when I received my master's degree in anthropology and archaeology. I went to work for the National Park Service in 1983 and continued to work for them until 2007. The first 10 years I was in New England, and the last 15 years I was Chief of Research and Resource Management at Mesa Verde National Park. In all of my positions, I was working under the umbrella of the National Historic Preservation Act, doing historic preservation. A lot of times it was with prehistoric sites, But of course, up at Mesa Verde, we have a National Historic Landmark District, so I was also responsible for the historic properties there as well. I've been on the Preservation Board for the City of Cortez for 22 years, and the process has become much more formal, I have to say, in the last couple of years. So as part of the Preservation Board, I've served as chairman for quite a while. I started writing grants in 2010. We are part of the Certified Local Government Program, and that allows the city to apply for grants to conduct historic preservation projects. These grants do not require any matching funds. I call it free money. And since 2010, I have been successful in writing, I have to look at this, 12 successful grants, bringing into the city over $200,000. Now, this is money that the city uses to hire a contractor. And so most of the work is done by the contractor, and the city simply, Scott, has to, get your signatures on it and make sure the accounting is done properly. We have a 2026 grant which will, inventory the 5 schools that have not yet been documented here in Cortez. Unfortunately, the federal government hasn't released those funds to the state of Colorado yet, so we'll let you know when that comes through.
Hello, Linda. How do you see historic preservation as a benefit to the community?
Well, I think that it provides a sense of pride of place, that we still have historic buildings. The stone block building, of course, built in 1890, is on the corner of Market and Main, right across from the Montezuma Valley National Bank, built in 1910. Of course, this year, we are celebrating the 140th anniversary of the establishment of Cortez, as I'm sure you all know. So it's a great chance to further educate our residents and visitors about the interesting history that's here. Our historic buildings blending, of course, the early wooden buildings unfortunately burned down on Main Street, but the mix that we have now, a lot of 50s architecture as well as the very early stone buildings, does provide for an interesting and diverse cityscape. Another important part of historic preservation is adaptive reuse. And many of you may recall when the Calkins building was still owned by the school district, but they had moved out of the building. And for a while, it looked like we might lose that building. Fortunately, it has now turned into housing with the addition of 2 more buildings. And I have to tell you that that form of adaptive reuse is talked about in Denver as an example of what you can do with your old buildings and turn them into something that is needed right now by the communities. So we have to be proud about that.
Thank you.
Linda, thanks so much for applying. How would you explain historic preservation to a Cortez resident?
Well, I think, as I said before, it's important to have a diversity of buildings from the 1890s right up through the wonderful 1950s. I'm not a fan of that architecture because I grew up with it, but anyway, I think it's important to understand that the town of Cortez was platted by a gentleman named James Hanna, who diverted part of the Dolores River over here into Montezuma County so we could have farming and ranching. There's really no good reason why the town of Cortez should have survived. We're not on a river, and the railroad never came. So I think it's important for our residents and visitors to understand that it's almost like a little engine that could. I mean, Cortez was here because we were kind of between Gallup and Moab, and so people came through on the way to the Grand Canyon, Mesa Verde, etc. But I think, the old saying that if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. I don't think that's entirely applicable in terms of the city's history, but I think it's important for the residents to understand that this place was kind of slow until the 1950s when the uranium boom happened and Cortez became the center for all of the purchasing, and the employees lived here, coupled with the World War II, post-World War baby boom, and all of a sudden the town took off. So there's all those stories that I think are very important, and if people are going to live here and make this their home, it's really nice if they know something about how the town came to be.
So this is the stupidest question I could possibly ask you. And we only have a certain amount of time. Here we go. What do you know about the city of Cortez?
Well, I'm not going to bore you. You probably know more than I do because you grew up here. I've only been here for, 30 some odd years. I'm not going to go into that. I've already given you little snippets. Come on a walking tour. We're doing another one on June 6th and another one on August 2nd. There's so many stories to tell. Let's leave it at that.
Linda, what is your favorite building in Cortez?
Well, it's not just one. I already mentioned the stone block building, also known as the Wilson Building, the Montezuma Valley National Bank, and Calkins. All three of those buildings were constructed with local sandstone taken from the quarry out here on the west side of town. The first two buildings were built by the Backstrom Brothers stonemasons. They built the first part of Calkins in 1926, and the rest was finished as a WPA project during the Depression. So those to me are like, the quintessential. I also have to mention our one Victorian home that is on the corner of Ash and First Street. It's the yellow house right across from Calkins, and it's got some of that fancy, not super Victorian. And lastly, I really like the craftsman-style houses that are up on Montezuma Avenue. I didn't know anything about this until we started getting these grants and inventorying these houses, and I've read all the reports. So craftsman style started as like small bungalows, small houses by today's standards. But if you drive or walk down Montezuma, you'll see that they have porches and they have these columns out in front, and the columns take all different shapes and so forth. But that was a very important architectural movement throughout our country, and the fact that we have several of them in Cortez, of course, is always good news. So that's it, just those three categories.
Thank you, Linda. That's all the questions we have. We will be making a decision at the end of tonight's city council.
Okay,
Thank you very
for your
much.
time.
Danielle, how many positions do we have open for the historic preservation?
There are 2 openings for the historic preservation.
Thank you. Okay, if we could call Jennifer Diamond in. Would you mind grabbing her? If you want to go ahead and come up to the mic and make sure the green light's on.
Hello.
There we go. Sounds good. What we're going to do is ask you some questions.
Okay.
And just hear what you have to say.
Great.
Start over.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for applying and coming here today. Can you please tell us if you have any personal experience with historic preservation projects? And if so, describe it for us.
No, I do not have any experience with that.
Good evening, Jennifer. Secondly, how do you see historic preservation as a benefit to the community?
Yes. Sorry, just kind of reading my notes here, trying to prepare as best as I can. So yeah, we moved here a few years ago, and so I've been around the surrounding areas and just fallen in love with the landscape. And as a member of the community, just wanted to volunteer and give back and just help preserve the environment around Cortez.
Thank you.
Here we go again. So how would you explain historic preservation to a Cortez resident?
Good question. So I would say that the board is dedicated to protecting and preserving Cortez's historic and cultural resources, increasing public appreciation of the area's rich history, and harnessing the community's unique heritage as a driver of economic prosperity. I do know that the board applies for funding through the History Colorado to conduct activities related to historic preservation.
Hi, Jen. Hey. Don't be nervous, you're doing
I
great.
know, I'm like so nervous.
What do you know about the history of Cortez?
Ooh, good question. Not a whole lot of history, but just very enamored with the environment. I know Mesa Verde is not far from us. I know the board's been around since 2010 and has successfully developed and supervised 11 grants, including historic surveys, resulting in more than 220 individual properties being inventoried and being determined eligible for historic resources. And so, yeah, I know that there's also the Cortez Cultural Center, Chamber of Commerce, and they all contribute significantly to the historic preservation of Cortez.
What is your favorite building in Cortez?
Ooh, gosh, there's so many down Main Street that we walk by. I haven't done the walking tour, but I've been meaning to do that. I would probably say Zoo Gallery. We love frequenting there, and it's such a beautiful building, along with the other buildings that are right next to it as well. So I love all the photos of what they look like back then and what they look like today.
Thank you. That's the end of our questioning. We will make a decision later on in council today.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Library Advisory Board. Abdel Barada. Danielle, how many openings do we have for this position?
We also have 2 for this one.
2, okay. If we could have Abdel come to the, if you want to come up to the mic and just make sure it's green.
Yeah, hi.
Hi there, we're going to ask you a few questions. We're going to go right down the line, and they're going to be easy questions.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll go ahead and start with
Thank you for being here, Abdel. Please give a brief description of your background in education.
Okay, yes, yeah. Well, I grew up in Morocco, so I got my bachelor's degree and master's in Morocco and France. I also spent some time in Paris, France. And then I came to the US in 1979, fall of 1979, to study for, I enrolled in a PhD program at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I graduated in 1983. Yeah, so I went back to Morocco. I met my wife in Lincoln. So, and we had one child, and then we went back to Morocco. But then after about a year and a half, my wife came back. She said she needed to come and visit her parents. And we had 2 children back at that time, so, but she didn't want to go back. So I had to make an extremely difficult decision. So I ended up joining her here in the US.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello. Why are you interested in serving on the Cortez Library Advisory Board, and what unique perspective or skills would you bring?
Okay, well, I moved to this area. I got a job with Colorado State University in fall of 1993. And then basically since I moved here, I've been going to the library, checking out books, and the library has so many wonderful events and programs for people of all ages. So I belong to the book club, and I joined Friends of the Library just a couple months ago. And I've been going to a lot of the events, not all of them. So I am very fond of the library. I mean, the library is one of my favorite places to go to, beside the parks and the rec center and a few other places. But so I want to learn more about the library, and I want to be able to help as much as I can, promote the library to other people, and just be able to serve and give back to the community. It's basically, I retired from Colorado State University, and I've been trying to become a writer, a novelist. So I published my first novel last year, and it's not easy, but it's my new hobby now, is write, and I read a lot. So I want to be able to help and be of service to the community, especially the library.
Thank you, and congratulations on your publication.
Thank you.
What opportunities do you see for growth or improvement at the library?
I mean, again, there are so many things going on already that are wonderful. I mean, what I want to do, I want to learn first. If I join the board of advisors, I want to be able to learn, see what else they do, and see where I can help. I mean, I learn also, not just from being on the board, but also maybe from other libraries. But I want to be able to be not a voice. I mean, there's other board members, but one of the voices, promote the library. And I think my wife, my wife was telling me that one thing that will help is for elderly people, like senior citizens. But I know there are already programs. I know Heather helps out, like phone, I think every Tuesday, people who have problems with their smartphones, she helps them with that. I know some seniors use the computers, which are a very good, that's a very good service to the community. But there may be other programs maybe for seniors that may be helpful. So I want to just learn and see where I can be of service and help out as best as I can.
All right.
Good evening. What do you think is the biggest asset of the library?
Well, I mean, the biggest asset is, all those books and movies and, books in print and CD formats, and the people, they go there and they check out books and read them. That's probably the biggest asset, but all these other activities, like book club, I love the book club. Computers, very, very, I see when I go there, I see so many people using the computers, people maybe who don't have a computer at home or don't have access to the internet. And then all these other things, authors talks, movie night, so many things that the library does that's really very helpful, educational, informative to the community. I mean, yes.
All right, this is your last question of the night.
Okay.
Libraries face challenges such as limited budgets, evolving technology, and shifting community expectations. Which challenges do you think is most pressing for Cortez, and how should the board approach it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, budget is always a challenge in any community. So like Friends of the Library do a great job helping, not really raise money, but much money, but sell books and stuff, so there is a little bit of money. The internet technology is probably the biggest challenge, because things are evolving rapidly. I think I read somewhere that some libraries, they have, you know, they may not have books there, in physical books. They may just go there and then you just do it on the internet, online. There is the, what's that, the Libby system. I get books to that, especially audio books. I do get to that. Maybe we can look into that more and see what we can do to make it more accessible to the community so that more people are available to use the services of the library. So that's probably the biggest challenge, I would say.
Well, thank you very much for coming. We will have an answer sometime later tonight when we go through our agenda, and we appreciate you coming and talking to us. Thank you very much. Planning and zoning, how many positions do we have for that?
We have 2 openings.
2 openings for plan. Okay, if we could call Richard Landeth.
And Mayor and Council, while he's coming up, there's actually another candidate, but they're still in the background phase, so we weren't ready for interview of that, so that'll come at a future meeting.
Okay. Hi there, is the green light on for you?
It is.
Here we go. What we're going to do is ask you a set of 5 questions. They're really easy questions. And we'll just go down the line and see what we come up with. We're going to start down here this time.
Hi, welcome. Please explain your interest in being a member of the Planning Commission.
Well, right now I am on the, I have been on the Parks and Rec board, and you know, I like participating. I've worked for the city for 8 years, so I have kind of a good general knowledge of what's going on around the city, and so this is kind of my next step, kind of beyond the Parks and Rec committee, and I'm hopefully looking forward to helping as much as I can.
All right. Hello. What would you consider the chief functions of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I see that as a review board that makes your job easier. We will kind of filter things. We will make sure the land use code is being followed. You know, all the kind of nuts and bolts of whatever comes before us, and then make our recommendations to you. So really, I see us as a group that's going to help you guys.
Thank you.
Richard, thanks for your previous service and thanks for applying for this position. What do you think is the biggest planning issue currently facing the city?
Well, that's you know, I thought about all the questions that you guys might ask, you know, and that's I kind of figured it might be something like this. I don't know that there are any major problems or issues that we have to deal with. I think the main thing is to make sure that we communicate appropriately with the public, make sure everybody understands the rules and regulations that have been set forth, follow them to the best of our ability, and in that way we will help the city grow in an appropriate manner. That's the best I can say. I don't think there's anything going on in the city that's a major issue.
Thank you.
What key contributions would you make should you be selected to serve as a member of the Planning Committee?
Well, I would be an active member of the board. I think I have some good experience. Like I say, I worked for the city for 8 years. Prior to that, I did about 11 years as a public works director at a couple of towns in Colorado. So have a good understanding of planning, zoning, you know, rules and regulations. And so, you know, with that, I think I could be a good member of the committee.
Thank you.
Of the board.
Thank you.
I have the long one. Give me just a second. Planning and zoning meets on the first Tuesday of each month at 6:30 PM, and a second meeting could be called on the third Tuesday of each month if needed. Work sessions are held at 5 PM occasionally. Would you be able to attend the work sessions and meetings? If yes, understand that some projects will be controversial and/or require significant preparation time. Do you have the time to devote to this?
I do. I am, as I stated before, I did 8 years with the city as the water superintendent, and I retired from that position. Currently, I am mostly retired. I'm still doing some work, and so I absolutely have the time. I know what the schedule is. You know, I don't miss meetings. And I didn't even mention, and I'm looking toward the city manager. I do currently sit on the Cortez Sanitation Board. I don't know if could be a conflict of interest. I don't know. We never talked about that.
Yeah, in most cases, no, unless there's something specific to this sand district,
Okay. Yeah, and
which is easy to avoid.
I've been on the Sand District for 3 years. I've missed one meeting in that time. And so I take all my positions seriously, and I will be available as much as necessary to perform the duties.
Thank you.
That is all the questions we have of you. Wasn't that hard?
It wasn't.
So we're going to be making a decision later on in council,
Okay.
and so we will know tonight.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Advisory Board.
There are 4 openings for this board.
4 openings.
However, right now, the first applicant, Mr. Esco, he is not here yet.
Okay.
So he's not here at this moment. And then, so you know, Mr. number 3, Ernie Padilla, is also not here yet. So you're aware. But Mr. Stephen Moore is here, and he's available for questions.
Okay. Come on up. Make sure the light is green. We have some questions that we're going to ask you. So go ahead and say something into the mic. We'll make sure we can hear you.
Thank you for having me.
There we go. You sound good. All right, we're going to go down the line. We've got some questions we're going to ask. Where did we leave off at?
I think here. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your interest. And can you tell us why are you interested in being a participant on the advisory board? And do you have any goals which you would like the advisory board to achieve?
So I'm currently on the advisory board, PARFAB, like we like to say. I'm actually the appointed secretary. So I'm wrapping up a 2-year term, and I would be happy to go 2 more years. We've got a lot of challenges in front of us. It's been interesting and exciting to see what PARFAB was all about. I think now I've got my feet on the ground and understand some of the nuts and bolts and the financial challenges in the immediate future that we need to address. So that's really a goal, is just to try to understand where we are and how we can get where we want to go and stay within the realms of the budget.
Good evening. Please share your background, and involvement in projects or organizations related to parks, recreation, events, or open spaces and trails.
So I worked for 35 years in Austin, Texas, and at the University of Texas the entire time. So I worked in quite a few different capacities, and retired as director for facilities and safety for the College of Natural Sciences, managing $100 million projects and full renovations of laboratory buildings and such. So the facilities side is something very familiar with me. During college, I did work in landscaping and actually had a job, mowing lawns as a 12-year-old, and bought my first car at 15 with that money. So I've run mowers and chainsaws and also managed all those types of projects, as well as the facilities like the rec center and all the infrastructure that goes along with that. I've lived here full-time for 4.5 years, but we've been coming through this area since '84. My parents are up valley a little ways, so.
Thank you.
right, can you tell us about a time you contributed to a long-term project or plan? How would you help support multi-year planning for parks, trails, or recreational initiatives?
Well, I haven't been a part of managing parks and trails projects, but the big projects at the University of Texas that I described earlier were 5 years plus, including the last one was through the COVID challenges and material shortages and such. But I volunteer with SWCA, the bike group, Southwest Colorado Cycling Association. We do trails maintenance and understanding the relationship with the Forest Service and BLM and the arrangements of where we're allowed to make trails and maintain trails. So I'm familiar with the outdoor world around here, but I haven't actually managed recreation and trails projects per se.
What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing parks, recreation programs, or forestry in small communities today?
Well, small communities across the nation probably are all facing the budget situations. There were more people on campus at the University of Texas than there are in this entire county. So it's a different scenario. The parks here are the crown jewel, really, of the city of Cortez, and historically play an oversized role in that. And so to find the money to keep the parks at least as good as they are and then improve upon the other facilities going forward is really going to be the biggest immediate challenge. We have to look at 5-10 years and make sure that we can sustain and improve what's already been established as something very important to the people around here.
I think you just touched on this, but I'll ask you the question. Maybe you can add something if you choose. Our parks, rec center, golf course, and trails all compete for limited resources. How would you help prioritize improvements?
Yeah, that's a great challenge. One of the things that we've talked about most recently is the community input. We are going through the process of having a new master plan, and one of the biggest portions of that is listening to the community and what they have to say. Where are their priorities? Because if we have 6-8 people in Parfab, we have our ideas, but that's a really small data set. So we need to reach out, understand what the other viewpoints are around the city and the county, and make sure that we're making recommendations for decisions that matter for everyone.
Steve, I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meets on the third Thursday of each month at 3 p.m. Would you have any problem attending meetings?
No, sir. I've maybe missed one in 2 years, and that was a pre-planned vacation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's all the questions we have of you. We will be making a decision later on today.
Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much.
Good luck with the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Hi, come up to the mic and tell us who you are.
So my name is Steve Etter. I've been in Cortez for about 1.5 years. I moved up from Rio Rancho.
Thanks,
And
Steve.
we retired and decided to make this home.
We're going to make this real simple on you and easy. We have 6 easy questions for you. We're going to go down the line and just ask you the questions, and if you could answer them for us, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, I have question number 1. Why are you interested in being a participant on the advisory board? Do you have any goals which you would like the advisory board to achieve?
Well, I've had a long-term interest in parks and recreation, particularly recreation. I spent 13 years as a county 4-H agent where I worked with young people, and so I have a strong interest in in providing opportunities for families and children to enjoy country lifestyle. And I think, if you live in a big city, you have a plethora of opportunities for your children. When you live in a small town, you have to work harder at creating them so that they have the same opportunities as other kids. And I think that's really, really important. I served on the Parks and Recreation Board in the city of Rio Rancho for 6 years prior to coming here, and something I enjoyed. You asked me, do I have an agenda or a set of goals? I really don't, other than to participate, to bring a sound, logical thinking to the community and to share what I have. I'm retired. I want to be engaged in the community. I want to give something back. I don't want to just be a person who takes, and it's important to me. And I've just enjoyed the service I've given previously, and I think I have something that I can offer. My undergraduate degree is in agronomy, and so I have a strong ag background, and I've worked in ag and natural resources virtually my whole career, and I have a master's in public administration, so I do understand somewhat running governmental operations, and I hope I can just contribute. I think that would be my goal, is to be a contributor.
Thank you. Please share your background and involvement in projects or organizations related to parks, recreation, events, or open spaces and trails.
I think I did kind of answer that, maybe a little. I represented District 4 in Rio Rancho on Parks and Recs for 6 years. And then I worked as a county extension agent, which you have one here too, and so I ran the fairs, and I've always found a way to be engaged in the community. We lived in Shiprock for a time, and I was on the school board in Shiprock. I represented Shiprock on Central Consolidated. So I've always tried to find a way to give something back and not just be a taker. So I think that would be my answer.
Oh, I never turned it off. All right. Tell us about a time you contributed to a long-term project or plan. How would you help support multi-year plans for parks, trails, and recreation incentives?
It would be hard for me to pick one. When you live in a city the size of Rio Rancho, they're planning 10, 15, 20 years out. And it's a continual process of looking at, first of all, what are our facilities today? What do they need to be maintained and to be current, and to what are the improvements we need to make? And then long range, where is the city building, and where is housing going, and where are schools going, and where do we need to have recreation and trails? And so, as a board member, it's hard to influence those decisions directly because you have a Parks and Rec staff that's sort of what they do, and you're infringing a lot if you get into the nuts and bolts and the daily working of those organizations. I think the way that I can contribute, it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think what's more important is what would I do if I was on this board, and how would I help Cortez? I think what I do bring to it is some common sense judgment. I have a great value in what parks bring to a community, what recreation opportunities bring to a community. I understand how they make communities livable. I understand how they add to property values and to quality of life, and how those things really are important when people look at a community to move to, for example. We look at schools, and we look at what are recreation opportunities for our families, and those things really add to the character of a community, to the quality of life. And so I guess my approach would be to rely on Parks and Rec staff to, if I ever felt that we weren't thinking ahead about those kinds of things, I would have something to say. But I don't think Cortez is that kind of city. We have beautiful parks, and we have beautiful facilities. I take advantage of them now, and I want to continue to do that. I want to see them maintained. So that would be my greatest contribution, I think, is that I bring a lot of experience to that particular arena in city government.
Thank you.
Stephen, what do you believe are the biggest challenges facing parks, recreation programs, or forestry in small communities today?
Oh, it's easy. Money. It's always money, right? It really is. I mean, we all have champagne taste and a beer budget, right? I mean, that's true of any town. I don't care if it's large or small. But we have to make smart choices, right? We have to take the funds that we have, and we have to prioritize and make reasonable choices about how we spend people's money. And I do have a strong sense of fiscal responsibility, but I also don't want to say we can't do anything. We have to put one foot ahead of the other, and we were always, in Rio Rancho, we were very aggressive about grant funding, and I know in Colorado, we also have a lot of opportunities to bring in grant funding for Parks and Recs, and we have to be very aggressive about supplementing the money that we do have, but we also have to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you.
Our parks, rec center, golf course, and trails all compete for limited resources. How would you help prioritize improvements?
Well, there's always health and safety first, right? People have to be safe, and the parks have to be safe. We can't have known hazards. That has to be the top priority. You have to make what we do have safe and usable. We have to look at the long-term projections on what we do have and what the maintenance needs are going to be down the road and prioritize those things. And it's not an easy thing to prioritize. Everybody wants their piece of the pie and they want it now. And we can't do that. We have to work together to determine, what's going to be our priorities. But I can say this, as long as I've been doing it, my number one priority has always been seniors and it's always been kids. Those are the two things that I have found to be, in my life, the most important. Seniors rely on recreation, and it has to be safe, and it has to be accessible, it has to be usable. It's just really important. And then our children just need lots and lots of opportunities so that they can grow and develop into be the citizens that we want them to be. And we can heavily influence that through Parks and Rec. So those would be my top two priorities. But I think when it comes down to how budgeting gets done, I want to hear from our Parks and Recs director, what do you think the priorities are? And I'm capable of listening and making an informed judgment in a group of people to come to a reasonable decision.
Thank you very much.
The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meets on the third Thursday of each month at 3 p.m. Would you have any problem attending those meetings?
Well, I'm retired, so I have less problems than I ever had. I do travel some. There will be some months that I'll be gone. But I do try to make it a priority. I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to commit to the time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. We will have an answer later on tonight.
Right,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. May I ask one more question?
Sure, one more question from you.
Sure. Are you a resident of Dolores or in the city of Cortez?
I am in Dolores.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just north of P on Road 26.
Hey, thanks very much for clarifying.
Alan, if you'll step up to the mic and tell us who you are.
Alan Klein, 206 Lakeside Drive, Cortez, Colorado.
We've got about 6 questions. Go down the line. If I could ask you to be thorough but brief. So just to the best of your ability.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start off.
Thank you for your interest, Mr. Klein. Can you tell us why are you interested in being a participant on the advisory board? And do you have any goals which you would like the advisory board to achieve?
Well, I've been on the board for 8 years, if not longer, and I love our whole recreation and parks program in our community. And I've explained to our current director and previous directors that we have a world-class recreation program and park system, and I truly believe that, and I'm a big user. I live on Denny Lake, I go to the rec center, I use the outdoor pool, I used to play golf regularly, and I've gone to so many events in the parks over the 36 years or 37 years that I've lived here. So, I really love what we have going, and I just want to make sure that that trend of excellence continues. And I think I can provide good input on making that happen.
Thank you for serving so long. Please share your background and involvement in projects or organizations related to parks, recreation, events, or open spaces.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I have a pretty rich background in economic development and community development, prior to my career in the private sector, which is technology and internet-based. But initially in my career, I did a lot of community development and economic development work, including for the city of Commerce City, where I administered HUD community development block grants. And in that capacity, we had federal funds and we developed parks, and I supervised the implementation of that. I also served on Planning and Zoning Commission here in Cortez, and so I was involved in, planning aspects of that. And I also worked on economic development, and in many cases, we tried to promote and expand our recreational opportunities to make sure that those were appealing features of our community so that it made it more attractive to recruit and retain businesses. So, I have a lot of experience in doing that.
Mr. Klein, thank you for sharing that, because I think you went into the next question, your contribution to long-term projects and plans. So I'm going to skip ahead with the next question. And can you tell us what you believe are the biggest challenges facing parks, recreation programs, or forestry in small communities today?
Funding? Did I hesitate? No, literally funding is. And for example, when we first did vision projects with the South Park, we had a beautiful plan drawn up of how this beautiful multi-featured, multifaceted park was going to be. We're going to have an art wall. We're going to have this whole forested area and all these elaborate things, but then we had no money to really build it and maintain it. And I think what's challenging is that everyone wants to see something beautiful and glamorous. Like, I would love for us to have an ice hockey rink like Durango. I don't even ice skate, but I think that would be neat. We're never going to have a ski hill like they have either, but those are things we can't realistically pull off, because even if we built it, can we afford the operation and maintenance costs? And we're finding how challenging that is for just a rec center. And it took us a lot of time to get that passed by the voters. None of you were here except maybe the mayor, Dennis. And that was not an easy task. And we were so frustrated that it didn't pass the first time. So, and we know what it's like to go from nothing to now have a rec center. Now one we have to continue to figure out how to maintain and operate. And I want to be a part of that process.
And that ties in a little to the next question, that the parks, center, golf course, and trails all compete for limited resources. How would you help prioritize those improvements?
We've got great leadership here with our Parks and Recreation Director, and through our board, we have a prioritization process where we go through the capital projects and we score them and rank them on a really, mutually agreed upon process. And so we weight things, and it's an incredibly challenging thing, which you'll find out on city council. Like, who do you take care of? The people that want to play softball south of town, or all the soccer kids, or how about the skate park? Oh, don't forget the golfers. What about us outdoor swimmers? And so those are competing audiences. And so part of what I rely on Creighton is to get metrics so that we can at least talk about numbers and try to compare, at least the volume of people. But there's some programs like the skate park. We don't really have accurate numbers on the volume there. But we do the best job we can on weighting things, but it's not an easy task. And, certainly the pickleball people are certainly the loudest, but not necessarily the strongest. And you'll find that out soon.
This question really isn't intended for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meets on the third Thursday of each month at 3 p.m. Would you have any problem attending meetings?
No, although I don't show up early.
That's all the questions we have of you. We will be making a decision later on this evening.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your service for us.
All right, thank you.
Okay, could you come up to the mic, make sure it's green, and tell us who you are?
Hi, I'm Dave Stam.
Dave, we're going to ask you a few questions. If you would be brief, certainly cover the subject, but be as brief as you can. We're going to go down the row and just ask you some questions.
Right.
See, I think I'm going to start. Am I starting? Yeah, I'll start. Why are you interested in being a participant on the advisory board? Do you have any goals which you would like the advisory board to achieve?
I don't know the current goals. I have no idea what they are. I am a user of many of the facilities in the area and feel it's sort of a way of returning the favor.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, I am out in the environment all the time, and I take advantage of it. I participate a bit in trying to help already. I figured this might be the next step.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, please share your background and involvement in projects or organizations related to parks, recreation, events, and open spaces trails.
I've only lived here 4 years. I immediately, and I'd never been to this area of the country in my life, nor did I know anybody here. I immediately got involved with pickleball. I am on the Cortez pickleball board and have been active in it since I arrived. I then got involved with mountain biking, and with mountain biking I am involved with a group that does rides on a regular basis. I am involved with SWICA, which does the trail maintenance for Phil's World as well as for Boggy Draw. I'm involved with the mountain bike trails that are managed for Mancus, which include Chicken Creek as well as Aqueduct, and doing trail maintenance. So it's a way for me to give back because I ride those trails a lot. I live a block away. I am the president of the Park de Vida townhomes, which I own one. I've been the owner there for 3 years. So I look out on the park all the time. I see it, I use it, I appreciate it, and I want to show a way to have that be a beautiful opportunity for people in the future. And I know there's a lot more parks in this area, but there's only a few that I use. So I figured I'll find more.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Tell us about a time you contributed to a long-term project or plan, and how would you help support multi-year planning for parks, trails, and recreation incentives?
I could give you some answer about my work, what I want to. Long term, I live a day at a time. I really do. But I take advantage of the long-term work that's been done by SWICA, particularly. 20 years running the 12 Hours Mesa race, you know. Those are the things I want to be involved with, you know, to continue. So that's my answer. Okay?
Thank you for being here. What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing parks, recreation programs, or forestry in small communities today?
Probably red tape. Probably red tape and old policies. Here's a good example. I ride my mountain bike a lot. I help at SWICA. I help at Mancus Trails. I ride an e-bike. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Moab has changed that. They've got 200 miles just approved. I'd like to see that it happen here because the revenue that they are going to get of all the people that will e-bike there, it's the right thing for our community too. So, and red tape will stop that. Red tape will stop that because they look at old policies and they don't know, maybe that's the future.
All right, I've got your last question. Or no.
Yep.
Are parks and Center, golf course, and trails are competing for limited resources, how would you help prioritize the improvement?
Ask it again, please, one more time.
Okay, sorry. Our parks, rec center, golf course, and trails all compete for limited resources. How would you help prioritize improvements?
You always try to find where there's something that's wasted. You know, that's the easy thing, right? I wouldn't know where that exists. I have no idea. And maybe they deserve more than they get. Maybe there isn't the capacity to give it to them, so maybe concessions have to be made. Maybe user fees go up. That's usually the best answer, is user fees. I don't know. I don't have a better answer. But there's ways to certain places. I wouldn't know that exists. I can tell you that the pickleball lights don't need to be on till 11 o'clock at night. There's waste of lights that are on. I look outside my windows every night and I think, why are they on? But is that it?
One more question,
Right.
Dave. Okay, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meets on the third Thursday of each month at 3
That's
p.m.
my mountain bike night. I don't know.
That's,
I'm not kidding. We mountain bike every Thursday night.
well,
Okay, go ahead.
would you have any problem attending meetings?
I could. I mean, there are certain events that I will support my 4 years of commitment. For Zuma Bike Ranch that does professional mountain bike training, that's June 5th. If it happens that night, I'm already committed. Otherwise, I can understand that Thursday night's a busy night and maybe I'll have to make concessions. But it is the group night that we do rides every Thursday night.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being
I
here.
probably just lost the opportunity.
We will be making a decision later on, and we appreciate you coming in.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Are any of the other candidates here? No? Okay. In the interest of time, we'll go ahead and close our work session and give about a 6-minute break, and then we'll be back for council.